A sheltered 23-year-old virgin attends her first college party after years of strict homeschooling. One tequila shot leads to another, and she wakes up in a penthouse suite next to a man whose face she can't remember. What she doesn't know is that he's the city's most ruthless billionaire. And their one night together just triggered a chain of events that will change both their lives forever. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and join our community of 10,000 storytellers who live for these jaw-dropping twists. Let's dive in. The bass thundered through the walls of the converted warehouse in downtown Manhattan as Emma Clark gripped her plastic cup like a lifeline. 23 years old, and she'd never been to a party. Not a real one anyway. Church youth group gatherings didn't count. Her roommate Jess had dragged her here after 3 weeks of relentless pestering. Emma's homeschooled upbringing had been suffocating. Her parents ran a small ministry in rural Pennsylvania and kept her locked away from what they called worldly influences. No public school, no sleepovers, no boys, just Bible study and volunteer work at the church soup kitchen. Television was monitored, internet was filtered, books were pre-approved by her mother. Emma had grown up reading smuggled novels hidden under her mattress and dreaming of a life beyond the church basement. She'd finally broken free 6 months ago when she got accepted to NYU for graduate school in social work. The acceptance letter had arrived on her 23rd birthday. Her parents had called it a test from the devil. Emma had called it her salvation. 3 months of arguments. Threats of disownment, guilt trips about abandoning God's plan. But Emma had stood firm. She'd packed her single suitcase and taken a Greyhound bus to New York City with $200 and a heart full of terror. The freedom was intoxicating but terrifying. Jess thrust another shot glass into Emma's hand. This was her fourth, or fifth. The room had started spinning 20 minutes ago. The alcohol burned, but it also loosened something inside her that had been wound tight for 2 decades. All those years of being told she was special, set apart, chosen, when really she'd just been isolated and afraid. "Come on, Em, live a little." Jess clinked her glass against Emma's. Her roommate was everything Emma wasn't. Confident, experienced, comfortable in her own skin. Jess had taken Emma under her wing the first week of graduate school when she'd found Emma crying in the library bathroom. They'd been inseparable since. The liquid burned down her throat. Everything became a blur of colored lights and bodies pressed too close together. The music was too loud. The air was too hot. Emma's head felt like it was floating 3 feet above her body. She stumbled toward what she thought was the bathroom. Instead, she pushed through a side door and found herself on a fire escape overlooking the city. The cool October air felt like heaven against her flushed skin. She leaned against the railing and closed her eyes. The city stretched out below her. Millions of lights, millions of people living their lives without fear or shame or constant surveillance. Emma had dreamed of this view for years. Rough night? Emma's eyes snapped open. A man stood in the shadows smoking a cigarette. She could barely make out his features in the darkness, but his voice was deep and smooth like aged whiskey. He wore an expensive suit. She could tell even in the dim light. The fabric looked tailored. The watch on his wrist caught the streetlight and gleamed. "I don't drink," the words came out slurred. I didn't drink until tonight. Tonight I'm making up for 23 years of being good." He chuckled and stepped closer. The streetlight caught his profile. Sharp jawline, expensive suit, dark hair perfectly styled with just enough gray at the temples to make him look distinguished. He looked older than the college crowd inside, maybe early 30s, handsome in that dangerous way that made Emma's stomach flip. "First time at a party like this?" "First time at any party." Emma surprised herself with her honesty. The alcohol had demolished every filter. "My parents kept me locked up like Rapunzel, except without the magic hair. Just a lot of Bible verses and guilt." "Rapunzel," he took a long drag. The ember glowed orange in the darkness. "So you're looking for your prince?" "I'm looking for the bathroom." Emma tried to stand straight, but her legs wobbled. "But I found a fire escape instead. Story of my life. Always ending up in the wrong place." He caught her elbow as she stumbled. His touch sent electricity through her arm, through her whole body actually. Emma had never been touched by a man who wasn't family. Her parents had enforced a strict no-touching policy. No handshakes, no hugs, definitely no romantic contact. The warmth of his hand on her skin felt revolutionary. Easy there, princess. How much have you had? Not enough to forget 23 years of being invisible. The confession tumbled out. Do you know what it's like to watch everyone else live while you just exist? While you pray and read and serve, and never actually experience anything real? Something shifted in his expression. For a moment he looked almost vulnerable. Then it was gone, replaced by something harder. More than you'd think. They talked for what felt like hours. Emma couldn't remember half of what they discussed later. She remembered telling him about the book she'd read in secret, about sneaking documentaries on her phone after her parents went to bed, about teaching herself about the world through stolen glimpses. He told her about pressure, about expectations, about carrying weight that never got lighter. He didn't elaborate, and Emma didn't push. She remembered laughing, though. Really laughing. The kind that came from deep in her belly and made her sides hurt. And the way he looked at her like she was the only person in the world. Like her words mattered. Like she mattered. When he kissed her, she didn't pull away. His lips were soft and firm at the same time. The kiss tasted like cigarettes and something expensive. Emma had never been kissed before. Not even a peck. This was nothing like the chaste romance in the Christian novels her mother approved. This was heat and want and need. This made her entire body come alive. When he suggested going somewhere quieter, she said yes without thinking. Her brain had gone offline. Only sensation remained. The penthouse was a blur. Emma remembered the elevator ride, his hands in her hair, the way the city looked from 60 floors up, floor-to-ceiling windows, lights stretching forever like fallen stars. His apartment was all sharp angles and expensive furniture. Everything looked like it belonged in a magazine. The bedroom was dark. She remembered the softness of sheets that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. His hands on her skin, gentle at first, then more urgent. Emma gave away something precious that night. Something she'd been taught to guard above all else. Her purity, her virtue, the thing that supposedly made her valuable. But in that moment, she didn't care about her parents' teachings or her own carefully constructed boundaries. She didn't care that she didn't know his name, or that he didn't know hers. She just wanted to feel alive. She wanted to be someone other than good girl Emma for once in her life. The world narrowed to sensation, touch, breath, heat, pain that gave way to something else. Something that made her understand why people wrote songs about this. Why they started wars over it. Her body was capable of things she'd never imagined. She fell asleep in his arms, feeling both broken and whole at the same time. Morning arrived like a sledgehammer. Sunlight stabbed through Emma's eyelids. Her head throbbed with the intensity of a construction site. Every heartbeat sent a spike of pain through her skull. Her mouth tasted like something had died in it. Her body ached in places she didn't know could ache. She groaned and tried to remember where she was. The sheets were silk, actual silk. Emma's eyes flew open. The bedroom was enormous. Minimalist furniture in shades of gray and black. Abstract art on the walls that probably cost more than her college tuition. Everything screamed money, serious money, the kind of wealth Emma had only seen in movies. A floor-to-ceiling window showed the Manhattan skyline in harsh morning light. She was naked. Panic seized her chest. Fragmented memories crashed back. The party, the fire escape, a man's voice in the darkness. His hands, his mouth. Oh God, what had she done? She'd thrown away 23 years of purity for a drunken hookup with a stranger whose face she could barely remember. Emma sat up slowly and immediately regretted it. The room spun, her stomach lurched. She was going to be sick. She spotted her clothes scattered across the floor like evidence of a crime. Her jeans inside out, her shirt crumpled under the bed, her bra hanging from a chair. Emma scrambled out of bed and started grabbing them. Her hands shook so badly she could barely button her jeans. Where was her phone? Where was Jess? Where was she? Emma's brain felt like static. She tried to piece together how she'd gotten here, but huge chunks of the night were just missing. Black holes in her memory. The bedroom door opened. Emma froze, holding her shirt against her chest. A man walked in carrying 2 coffee mugs. Not just any man. He wore tailored suit pants and a crisp white dress shirt unbuttoned at the collar. His dark hair was damp from a shower. He smelled like expensive cologne. He looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine ad for luxury watches or private jets. Then Emma really looked at his face. Recognition hit her in waves. She'd seen that face before. Billboards, magazine covers, financial news segments her economics professor made them watch. The business section of newspapers. The man was everywhere in New York. Damian Cross, real estate mogul, youngest self-made billionaire in New York. Estimated net worth of $8 billion. Known for his ruthless business tactics and very public divorce 2 years ago from a supermodel. He'd started with nothing. Built an empire buying distressed properties and flipping them. Cross Tower was the tallest building in Manhattan. His name was synonymous with power and money. Emma's vision tunneled. Black spots danced at the edges. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. She'd slept with Damian Cross. She'd lost her virginity to one of the most famous men in America. Coffee? He held out a mug like this was completely normal. Like she hadn't just woken up naked in his bed after a night she could barely remember. I have to go. Emma's voice came out strangled. She yanked her shirt over her head. The fabric caught on her hair. She didn't care. She needed to leave, now. At least let me call you a car. No, I'm fine. I'll get a cab. Or the subway. I don't know. She was rambling. She needed to leave before she completely humiliated herself. Where were her shoes? Why couldn't she find her shoes? Damien set down both mugs on a bedside table. Look, last night was a mistake, Emma finished. She found one shoe under the bed. Where was the other one? A huge mistake. I was drunk. I've never been drunk before. I don't even drink. This isn't me. I don't do this. I don't sleep with strangers. I don't sleep with anyone. I gathered that. His tone was gentle, which somehow made it worse, like he pitied her. Emma spotted her other shoe by the door. She practically lunged for it. Please just forget this happened. Pretend you never met me. I'm nobody. This meant nothing. She didn't wait for his response. Emma ran out of the bedroom through a living room that looked like a museum and into an elevator that required a key card to operate. She jabbed at the buttons until the doors finally closed. Her reflection stared back at her from the mirrored walls. Hair tangled, mascara smeared, hickey on her neck. She looked exactly like what she was, a girl who'd made a terrible mistake. The descent felt endless, 60 floors of shame and regret. When she finally burst out into the lobby, the doorman called after her, but Emma kept running. She ran through the revolving doors onto the street. The morning air was cold. She'd left without her jacket. She didn't care. Emma ran until she found a subway station and collapsed onto a bench. Only then did she let herself cry. Great heaving sobs that made other commuters stare. She'd thrown away her virginity during a drunken one-night stand with a billionaire playboy who probably didn't even remember her name. Her parents would be devastated if they ever found out. She was devastated. Everything she'd been taught. Everything she'd believed about herself. All of it was gone. She'd given away the one thing she was supposed to save. The thing that made her special, pure, worthy. And for what? A night she couldn't even properly remember with a man who probably had a different woman in his bed every night. Emma's phone had 17 missed calls from Jess, 42 texts ranging from worried to frantic. She texted that she was fine and headed home, but she wasn't fine. She felt like she'd shattered into 1,000 pieces, like her old self had died, and she didn't know who was left. The subway ride took forever. Emma stared at her distorted reflection in the dark window and tried to figure out how to live with what she'd done. She couldn't tell anyone. Not Jess, not her parents. Definitely not her study group. This secret would have to stay buried forever. She finally made it back to the apartment she shared with Jess in Brooklyn. The building was old, 6 floors, no elevator. Emma dragged herself up the stairs feeling like she'd aged a decade overnight. Jess was waiting in the living room. She jumped up when Emma walked in. Oh my God, where were you? I've been losing my mind. You just disappeared, and I thought... Jess stopped. Her eyes widened. Oh, you hooked up with someone. Emma's face burned. I don't want to talk about it. Was it good at least? Jess, please. I just want to shower and sleep and forget last night ever happened. Jess held up her hands. Okay, okay, but you've been so tense since you got to New York. Maybe cutting loose was exactly what you needed. Emma thought about Damien Cross, about silk sheets and city lights and the feeling of being completely out of control. Cutting loose had been a disaster. She'd lost herself and found nothing but regret. The next 3 weeks were torture. Emma threw herself into her graduate coursework. She had papers due, presentations to prepare, field work at a community center in the Bronx. She kept so busy she barely had time to think. But at night when everything went quiet, the memories came back. Fragments. His voice, his hands, the way he looked at her like she mattered. She ignored Jess's questions about where she'd disappeared to that night. She definitely ignored the small hope that kept whispering, maybe he'd try to find her, which was stupid because she hadn't given him her number. And he was a billionaire. He probably had a different woman in his bed every night. Emma Clark from rural Pennsylvania meant nothing to someone like Damien Cross. Emma tried to forget. She really did. She went to class. She studied. She volunteered at a women's shelter as part of her fieldwork requirement. She helped women who'd made mistakes, who'd gotten pregnant, who'd been abandoned. The irony wasn't lost on her. Then she missed her period. At first, Emma thought it was stress. Her cycles had always been irregular. Growing up, her mother had told her that was normal, that her body was sensitive to emotional upset. NYU was stressful. Graduate school was demanding. Moving to a new city was overwhelming. Of course, her period would be late. But as another week passed, the anxiety became unbearable. Emma counted back. She was 3 weeks late. 3 weeks. That had never happened before. And she'd been feeling strange, nauseous in the mornings, exhausted all the time. Her breasts hurt. She couldn't stand the smell of coffee suddenly. No, this wasn't happening. Emma bought 3 pregnancy tests from 3 different drugstores. She spread them out across different days so the cashiers wouldn't remember her. She took them in the bathroom at school so Jess wouldn't see. All 3 showed the same result: positive. Emma stared at the plus signs and felt her entire world collapse. She was pregnant with a billionaire's baby, a billionaire whose full name she knew from Google, but who she'd never actually introduced herself to properly. What was she supposed to do? Show up at his office building and announce she was carrying his child? He'd think she was trying to trap him. He'd never believe this was an accident. She sat on the bathroom floor and cried until she had no tears left. This couldn't be real. This had to be a nightmare. Any second she'd wake up and none of this would have happened. But the test sat on the counter, mocking her with its 2 pink lines. Emma made an appointment at a women's clinic. She needed to confirm the tests were accurate and discuss her options. The thought of terminating the pregnancy made her physically ill, but so did the thought of being a single mother while still in graduate school. Her parents would disown her. She had no support system, no money, no plan. The clinic was in Queens. Emma took 2 trains to get there. The waiting room was full of women at various stages. Some looked relieved, some looked terrified. Emma felt both. The nurse who called her back was kind, middle-aged with gentle eyes. She didn't judge when Emma admitted she didn't know the father's contact information. They did blood work and ultrasound. The nurse confirmed Emma was about 5 weeks along. Everything looked normal. The fetus had a heartbeat. Emma stared at the tiny flicker on the screen and felt something crack open inside her chest. That was a life, a real life, growing inside her body. They gave her pamphlets about prenatal care and information about abortion and adoption services. The nurse explained all her options in a calm, professional voice. Emma stuffed them all in her bag and walked out in a daze. She had decisions to make, big decisions, life-changing decisions. She was sitting in a coffee shop trying to process everything when her phone rang. Unknown number. Emma almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Emma Clark? A woman's voice, professional, clipped, the kind of voice that expected to be obeyed. Yes? My name is Victoria Stone. I'm Mr. Cross's personal attorney. We need to meet. Emma's blood turned to ice. Her hand tightened around her phone so hard it hurt. I don't know what you're talking about. You were seen leaving Mr. Cross's residence on the morning of October 10th. Security footage shows you exiting visibly distressed. Mr. Cross would like to speak with you. How did they know who she was? How did they get her number? Emma's mind raced. Security footage. Of course. Damien Cross would have cameras everywhere. They'd tracked her down like she was some kind of criminal. How did you get my number? Mr. Cross has considerable resources, Miss Clark. Your roommate was quite helpful once we explained the situation. Jess. Jess had given up her information to Damien Cross's lawyer. Emma felt betrayed even though she knew Jess probably hadn't meant any harm. Someone with that much power asking questions. It would be hard to say no. I have nothing to say to him. That's unfortunate because he has quite a bit to say to you. There's also the matter of certain photographs that were taken outside his building that morning. The tabloids would pay handsomely for images of Damien Cross's latest conquest fleeing his penthouse in last night's clothes. Blackmail. She was being blackmailed by a billionaire's lawyer. Emma's stomach turned. If those photos went public, her parents would see them. Her professors might see them. Everyone would know she'd spent the night with Damien Cross. The humiliation would destroy her. Her mother would call her a whore. Her father would say she'd brought shame on their family. What does he want? Dinner tomorrow night, 7 p.m. His driver will collect you from your apartment. I'll text you the details. Victoria hung up before Emma could respond. Emma wanted to throw her phone across the coffee shop. Instead, she rested her forehead on the table and tried not to scream. This was a nightmare, an actual living nightmare. She couldn't escape him. Even when she ran, he'd found her. Money meant power, and Damien Cross had more of both than Emma could comprehend. But what choice did she have? If those photos went public, her life would be over, and she was carrying his baby. That complicated everything. He had a right to know, didn't he? Or did Emma have the right to keep it secret, to make her decision without his input? She didn't know. She didn't know anything anymore. The next day dragged by. Emma couldn't focus on her classes. She kept checking her phone, expecting another call, another threat. At 6:30, she changed clothes 3 times. Everything looked wrong. Too casual, too formal, too obvious. She finally settled on a simple dress, navy blue, conservative, the kind of thing her mother would approve of. The driver arrived exactly at 7, a sleek black car that probably cost more than her parents' house. The man who opened her door wore a uniform and didn't meet her eyes. Emma climbed into the leather interior, feeling like she was being escorted to her own execution. They didn't go to a restaurant. The car pulled up to Cross Tower, Damien's headquarters, a glass monolith that dominated the Manhattan skyline. 75 stories of steel and ambition. Emma was escorted through a private entrance to an elevator that required a fingerprint scan. They shot up so fast her ears popped. The top floor was his personal office. The doors opened directly into a space that looked like it belonged on another planet. More floor-to-ceiling windows, more minimalist luxury. The city spread out below like a toy model, and Damien standing by the glass looking out at the empire he'd built. He turned when she entered. He wore another perfect suit, this one charcoal gray with a burgundy tie. His expression was unreadable. Emma. He said her name like he'd been practicing it, like it meant something. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? She hated how small her voice sounded, how young and scared. No. At least he was honest. Can I get you something to drink? Water? Wine? Water's fine. She definitely wasn't drinking alcohol. Not now. Not with a baby growing inside her. He poured from a crystal decanter and handed her the glass. Their fingers brushed. Emma yanked her hand back like she'd been burned. That electricity was still there. That pull. It terrified her. I wanted to apologize. Damien's jaw tightened. For that night. I don't usually. Women I meet at parties aren't typically. He stopped, started again. You told me it was your first party. I should have realized you were inexperienced with alcohol. I should have put you in a cab instead of sleeping with me, Emma finished. Yes. At least he wasn't pretending it didn't happen. At least he wasn't dismissing it as meaningless. Emma set down her water glass before she dropped it. Her hands were shaking. Why am I here? Your lawyer threatened to leak photos to the press. That's not an apology. That's intimidation. That's using your power to force me into a situation I don't want to be in. Victoria overstepped. Anger flashed across his face. Real anger. I told her to contact you, not threaten you. She's fired. Emma blinked. You fired your lawyer? I don't keep people who abuse their position. Victoria had been with me for 6 years, but I won't tolerate that kind of behavior. He moved closer, not threatening, almost hesitant. I wanted to see you again, to make sure you were okay. You ran out of my apartment like the place was on fire, like I'd hurt you. I woke up in a stranger's bed. Emma's voice cracked. I'd never done anything like that before. I'm from a small town. My parents are religious. I was raised to believe that what we did. She couldn't finish. Tears threatened. She blinked them back furiously. Was wrong? He finished softly. Was special. Emma met his eyes. Sex was supposed to be special. With someone I loved. Someone who loved me. On my wedding night. That's what I'd been taught my entire life. That my body was a temple. That my purity was a gift. Not a drunken mistake with someone whose face I couldn't even remember the next morning. Damien flinched like she'd slapped him. Good. Let him feel some of what she'd been feeling. Let him understand that this wasn't just an inconvenience. This was her entire belief system shattered. I'm pregnant. The words came out before Emma could stop them. So much for her rehearsed speech. She'd planned to lead up to it, to explain, to soften the blow. Instead, she just blurted it out like ripping off a bandage. Damien went absolutely still, his face drained of color. The silence stretched until Emma thought she might shatter. She could hear her own heartbeat, the hum of the building's ventilation, traffic from 75 floors below. You're certain? His voice had gone flat, controlled, like he was struggling not to react. 3 home tests, confirmed by a clinic. 5 weeks along, which matches the timeline perfectly. Emma wrapped her arms around herself. I'm not here for money. I don't want anything from you. I just thought you should know before I decide what to do. Before you decide, he repeated. Something dangerous flickered in his expression. Are you considering termination? I'm considering everything. Emma forced herself to stay calm. This wasn't planned. I'm 23 years old. I'm in graduate school. I can barely afford rent. I work part-time at a bookstore to cover groceries. A baby would destroy every plan I've made for my life. I'd have to drop out, move home, admit to my parents that I failed, that I became exactly what they warned me about. What if I asked you to keep it? Emma laughed. The sound came out bitter and harsh. You don't get to ask me anything. You don't know me. I don't know you. This isn't some romantic story where the billionaire sweeps the pregnant girl off her feet and they live happily ever after. This is real life. My real life that you've completely upended. Damien moved to his desk and pulled out a checkbook. Emma's stomach turned. Of course, money solved everything for people like him. He'd write her a check and make the problem disappear. I'm not writing you a check, he said, reading her expression. I'm writing down an address, my personal residence in the Hamptons. Not the penthouse. My actual home. He tore off the page and held it out. Emma didn't take it. She stared at the paper like it might bite her. Come this weekend. Spend a few days. Let me show you I'm more than that night. Let me show you that maybe this doesn't have to destroy your life. Maybe it could enhance it. You're insane. Emma backed toward the elevator. You're actually insane. You think I'm going to spend a weekend with you because you have money and a nice house? You think that changes anything? Probably. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. It made him look younger, almost vulnerable. But I'm also serious. You're carrying my child, Emma. My child. I lost. He stopped, swallowed hard. Pain flashed across his features. I lost someone important 2 years ago. Someone I thought I'd have forever. This baby is a second chance. For both of us. Emma wanted to refuse. Every logical cell in her brain screamed this was a terrible idea. But something in his voice, something raw and honest and desperate, it made her hesitate, made her wonder what he'd lost, who he'd been before he became Damien Cross, the billionaire. One weekend, Damien pressed the paper into her hand. His fingers were warm. If you still want nothing to do with me after that, I'll respect your decision. Whatever you choose regarding the pregnancy, I'll support. Financially, logistically, however you need. But give me a chance to know you. Give yourself a chance to know me. To make an informed decision instead of one based on fear. Emma looked down at the address, at the careful handwriting, at the phone number written underneath in neat numbers. She was going to regret this. She knew she would. But her mouth opened and words came out anyway. One weekend, that's all, and then I make my decision. The Hamptons' house wasn't a house, it was an estate. Rolling lawns that stretched for what looked like miles. Private beach access with white sand that probably got raked daily. A main building that looked like it belonged in a European countryside with ivy climbing the stone walls. Smaller guest houses dotted the property. Emma stood in the circular driveway feeling completely out of place. The driver had picked her up at 8 that Saturday morning. Emma had barely slept. She'd packed and unpacked her bag 3 times. What did you bring to a billionaire's beach house? Everything she owned looked shabby and cheap. She'd finally thrown in jeans and sweaters and her one nice dress and hoped for the best. Damien emerged from the front door wearing jeans and a simple gray t-shirt. Emma had only seen him in suits. This casual version was somehow more intimidating. The jeans fit perfectly. The shirt showed off broad shoulders. He looked like a normal person, except nothing about the situation was normal. You came. He sounded genuinely surprised, like he'd expected her to cancel. I said I would. Emma clutched her overnight bag. It was canvas with a broken zipper. Probably cost $20 new. She felt ridiculous. He grabbed her bag before she could protest and let her inside. The foyer alone was bigger than her apartment. Marble floors, a chandelier that probably cost more than her entire education. Fresh flowers in crystal vases. Everything perfectly arranged like a museum. But as they moved deeper into the house, things changed. The interior was nothing like the stark penthouse. Warm colors, comfortable furniture that actually looked lived in. Throws draped over couches, books stacked on tables, photos on the walls. It felt like a home. Emma stopped at one photo that showed a younger Damien with a woman and a little girl. They were laughing on a beach. The woman was beautiful, blonde hair, perfect smile. The little girl had dark curls and was missing her front teeth. They all looked so happy, so complete. My ex-wife Rebecca and our daughter Lily. Damien's voice had gone quiet, careful, like the words might break him. That was taken 6 months before the accident. Emma's heart clenched. She'd read about the divorce in her desperate Google searches after that night. But there'd been nothing about a child, nothing about an accident. The articles had focused on the split from the supermodel, the massive settlement, the division of assets. What happened? Damien stared at the photo like it might come alive. Like if he looked long enough, they might step out of the frame. Car crash 3 years ago. Rebecca was driving Lily home from a birthday party. Drunk driver ran a red light going 60 in a residential zone. T-boned them on the passenger side. Emma's breath caught. Oh, God. Rebecca survived with minor injuries, a broken arm, some bruising. She was unconscious when they pulled her out. His jaw tightened. Lily didn't make it to the hospital. She died in the ambulance. She was 4 years old. 4 years and 3 months. The pain in his voice was so raw, Emma felt it in her chest. She wanted to touch him, to offer comfort, but they barely knew each other. What right did she have? I'm so sorry, I can't imagine. The grief destroyed us. Damien finally looked away from the photo. Rebecca blamed me because I was supposed to pick them up. I'd promised Lily I'd take her for ice cream after the party, but I had a late meeting, a deal that couldn't wait. So Rebecca drove them instead. If I'd kept my promise, if I'd put my daughter before business for once, she'd still be alive. Emma understood then, the weight he carried, the guilt that probably woke him up at 3 in the morning. It wasn't your fault. The drunk driver killed my daughter. I know. Logically, I know. He rubbed his face. But logic doesn't stop the nightmares. Rebecca couldn't look at me after that. Every time she saw me, she saw what we'd lost. The marriage couldn't survive that guilt. We divorced 6 months after the funeral. She moved to California. Started over. I stayed here drowning in real estate deals and empty rooms. Emma's hand moved to her stomach without thinking, to the tiny life growing inside her. Damien's eyes tracked the movement. Something desperate flickered across his face. "When you told me you were pregnant, I saw a chance to be a father again," he said. "I know that's selfish. I know this situation is complicated, but I can't walk away from this baby. I can't lose another child. Even if that child isn't born yet. Even if you decide—" He couldn't finish. Emma understood then. This wasn't about trapping her or controlling her. This was about a broken man trying to heal, trying to find meaning in tragedy. She didn't know if that made things better or worse. "Show me the rest of the house," she said quietly. The tour took an hour. Damien showed her everything. The library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, the kitchen with professional-grade appliances, the game room with a pool table and vintage arcade machines, the home theater, the gym, the wine cellar. Each room more impressive than the last. He'd left one door closed. Emma noticed but didn't comment, until they walked past it on the way back, and she saw his expression change, saw the pain flash across his features. "What's in there?" "Lily's room." His voice had gone flat. "I haven't changed anything. Rebecca wanted to pack it up before she left. She said keeping the room was torture, but I couldn't let go." Emma's chest tightened. "Can I see it?" He hesitated, then nodded. He opened the door slowly, like it might hurt. The nursery was frozen in time, soft yellow walls with hand-painted butterflies, a white crib with gauzy curtains, stuffed animals arranged on shelves, a rocking chair in the corner with a knitted blanket draped over it, books stacked on a small table, everything perfectly preserved, waiting for a little girl who would never come back. Emma stepped inside. She ran her hand along the crib railing. The wood was smooth, well-made, expensive. She could picture Damien standing here, watching his daughter sleep, never imagining he'd lose her. "You can't replace Lily with this baby." The words came out gentle but firm. Damien flinched, but Emma continued. "I know you're grieving. I know this pregnancy feels like a second chance, but that's not fair to me. It's not fair to this baby. If I keep it, if we do this together, it has to be about this child, not the one you lost." Damien's composure cracked. His eyes went glassy. "I don't know how to let her go. Every birthday, every Christmas, every time I see a little girl with dark hair, I forget for a second that she's gone. The pain doesn't get smaller. I just get better at carrying it." Emma walked to him. She took his hands. They were shaking slightly. This powerful man who commanded boardrooms and made billion-dollar deals was trembling. "Grief doesn't have a timeline, but you can't build a new life on top of an old one. You have to make space for both. You have to honor Lily's memory while also being present for what's happening now." Something shifted in his expression. Understanding, maybe, or the beginning of it. He squeezed her hands. "Will you help me to do that?" "I don't know yet," Emma was honest. "I don't know if I'm keeping the baby. I don't know if I can handle being a single mother. I don't know if I want you involved or if that would make everything more complicated. But I'm here this weekend, so let's start there." They spent the afternoon on the beach. The October air was cool but not cold. They walked along the shore in silence at first. Then Damien started talking, really talking, about his childhood, about growing up poor in Queens, about watching his mother work 3 jobs to keep a roof over their heads, about teaching himself real estate by reading library books and watching deals happen in his neighborhood. "I was hungry," he said, "not just for food, though we had plenty of nights with empty cupboards, but hungry to be someone, to matter, to have power so no one could ever make me feel small again." Emma told him about her isolated upbringing, how she'd felt like a prisoner in her own home, how she'd read forbidden books in the church basement, books about science and history and cultures her parents said were sinful, how she'd taught herself about the world through documentaries she watched on a phone she'd bought with money from cleaning houses. "My parents thought they were protecting me." Emma picked up a shell, turned it over in her palm. "From worldly influences, from sin, from anything that might make me question their version of God. But really they were just keeping me ignorant, keeping me dependent." "How did you finally break free?" "I applied to colleges in secret, used a friend's address for the mail, got accepted to 3 schools. NYU offered the most financial aid. When I told my parents I was leaving, they said I was choosing the devil over my family. Emma threw the shell back into the waves. My mother cried for a week. My father stopped speaking to me, but I left anyway because staying would have killed something inside me. You're incredibly brave, Damien said. Most people never break free from that kind of control. I don't feel brave. I feel terrified constantly, like I'm playing pretend and everyone will figure out I don't belong. That's what brave means, doing it anyway. They walked until the sun started setting. The sky turned orange and pink and purple. Emma had never seen anything so beautiful. Growing up, she'd seen sunsets over farmland. But this was different. The ocean stretched forever. The colors reflected on the water. It felt infinite. Damien had a cook who prepared dinner. Emma felt weird about that, having someone make food for her. But the woman was friendly, middle-aged with kind eyes. She made roasted chicken and vegetables and fresh bread. They ate on the terrace with candles and wine. Emma stuck to water. Can I ask you something? Emma set down her fork. That night at the party, why were you even there? You're not exactly college crowd material. Damien's expression darkened. He took a long drink of wine. It was the 3rd anniversary of Lily's death, October 10th. I couldn't be alone in my apartment, couldn't stand the silence. I went looking for noise, distraction. I found a party through someone on my staff, crashed it like a pathetic old man trying to feel young again. On the fire escape having a breakdown, Emma finished. Something like that. Then I found you on the fire escape having your own existential crisis. We were quite the pair. You were honest. He met her eyes. The candlelight made them look almost gold. Everyone in my world wants something. Money, connections, status, access. People smile and lie and pretend to care because of who I am. What I can do for them. You didn't know who I was. You just talked to me like I was a person. Emma's throat tightened. I told you things I've never told anyone. About my parents, my childhood. The alcohol loosened my tongue. You said you were looking for quiet when I suggested leaving. I was looking for you. His voice dropped. Someone who saw me. Not my bank account or my reputation. Just me. The air between them felt charged. Emma pushed back from the table. This was moving too fast. She couldn't let herself fall for him just because he was being kind. Because he was broken and grieving and seeing her as some kind of salvation. That wasn't enough foundation for raising a child together. I should go to bed. It's been a long day. Damien showed her to a guest room. It was beautiful. King-size bed, private bathroom, windows overlooking the ocean. He lingered in the doorway. Thank you for coming, for giving me this chance. We'll see if you're still thanking me tomorrow. He smiled, actually smiled. It transformed his whole face, made him look younger, less burdened. Good night, Emma. Good night. She closed the door and leaned against it. Her heart was racing. This was dangerous. Getting to know him, seeing him as human instead of some untouchable billionaire. It would make her decisions so much harder. Emma lay in bed staring at the ceiling. She thought about the baby growing inside her, about Damien's grief, about her own fears. Sleep didn't come easy. Sunday morning, Emma woke to find Damien already gone. A note on the kitchen counter explained he'd had to take an emergency business call. She poured coffee and wandered through the house alone. It felt intrusive, looking at his things without him there, but also intimate, like glimpsing the real person behind the public image. She found herself drawn back to Lily's room. The door stood open now. Emma stepped inside carefully. She looked at everything more closely this time. The books were all well-loved. Worn spines, dog-eared pages. Someone had read to this little girl over and over. Probably Damien, probably doing all the voices. The stuffed animals weren't just for show. They had names written on tags in childish handwriting. Mr. Bunny, Princess Bear, Dragon Dave. Emma picked up the dragon. It was missing one eye. The fabric was faded from being held constantly. She took that everywhere. Damien's voice came from the doorway. Emma jumped. Even to the birthday party, she refused to leave without it. The paramedics brought it to the hospital. It was in the ambulance when... He couldn't finish. Emma set Dragon Dave back carefully. You can't keep this room like a shrine forever. I know that now. He stepped inside. Seeing you here, seeing how life could move forward, it made something click. Rebecca was right. Keeping everything frozen isn't honoring Lily's memory. It's refusing to accept she's gone. What will you do? Pack it up, keep a few things, donate the rest to families who need it. Make this room into something else, something that looks forward instead of backward. He picked up a framed photo from the dresser. Lily in a princess costume. I'll always love her, always miss her, but I can't let grief be the only thing that defines me. Emma felt something shift in her chest. This version of Damien, vulnerable, honest, working through his pain. This was someone she could imagine co-parenting with, maybe even more. I've been thinking, Emma said carefully, about the baby, about my options. Damien went very still. And? I can't terminate. I thought I could. I thought it would be the practical choice. But I can't. Maybe it's my upbringing. Maybe it's something else. But this baby is real to me now. She pressed her hand to her stomach. But I also can't do this alone. I'm not ready. I don't have the resources or support system. I'll give you anything you need. Damien moved closer. Money, housing, health care, whatever it takes. I don't want your money, Emma's voice was firm. I want a partner, someone who shows up, who's present, who doesn't try to replace one child with another. Can you be that person? I don't know. At least he was honest. I've been absent for 3 years, buried in work, using business to avoid feeling anything. But I want to try. I want to be better. For this baby, for you. Then prove it, Emma challenged. Go to therapy. Work through your grief properly. Show me you're serious about healing, about being present. And I'll keep the baby. I'll let you be involved. We'll figure this out together. Damien's eyes went glassy. He blinked rapidly. You mean it? One condition. We take this slow. No rushing into anything. No fairy tale expectations. We get to know each other as people, as potential co-parents, and we see where it goes. Deal. He held out his hand. Emma shook it. His grip was firm, warm. They spent the rest of the day talking logistics. Damien wanted to set her up in an apartment near his. Better building, better neighborhood. Emma refused. She needed her independence. They compromised on him covering her medical expenses and setting up a fund for baby supplies. He asked about her graduate program, her career goals, her dreams beyond the baby. Emma admitted she wanted to work with at-risk youth, kids who'd grown up isolated or abused, who needed someone to see them, to believe in them. Damien listened like every word mattered. The drive back to Manhattan felt different, less terrifying, more hopeful. Damien rode with her in the car. He walked her to her apartment door. He didn't try to kiss her, just pressed his forehead to hers for a moment. Thank you, he whispered, for giving me this chance. Emma watched him leave. She pressed her hand to her still flat stomach and whispered to the tiny life growing inside her. This is going to be complicated, little one, but maybe we can make it work. The next 6 months were a journey. Damien started therapy twice a week. He called Emma every night, not to talk about the baby, just to talk, about their days, about stupid things, about nothing and everything. He attended every doctor's appointment. He held her hand during the anatomy scan when they found out they were having a boy. He cried when he heard the heartbeat, real tears that he didn't try to hide. Emma saw the grief and joy mixed together on his face, saw him loving this baby while still mourning the daughter he'd lost. They took things slow, dinners once a week, movies, walks in Central Park, getting to know each other as people instead of strangers who'd made a baby. Emma learned Damien loved old movies, black and white classics. He could quote entire scenes from Casablanca. He made terrible puns that made her groan. He was terrified of spiders but wouldn't kill them, just trap them in cups and release them outside. Emma told him about her dreams, about the youth center she wanted to open someday, a place where isolated kids could come and just be themselves, read banned books, watch documentaries, learn about the world. Damien listened and started making notes. Planning. He was a builder at heart. They didn't sleep together again. Emma needed to know this wasn't just physical, that there was something real building between them. Damien respected that boundary without question. He never pushed, never pressured, just showed up consistently. Emma's parents found out about the pregnancy during her second trimester. Her mother called demanding to know if the rumors were true. Emma's younger brother had seen her Instagram. Photos Jess had posted without permission. Emma with a baby bump. Emma glowing and happy. The call was brutal. Her mother cried, called her a disappointment, said she'd brought shame on their family. Her father got on the line, told her she was no longer welcome in their home, that she'd made her choice, that she could live with the consequences. Emma hung up and sobbed for hours. The rejection hurt worse than she'd expected. She'd known they'd react badly, but hearing them say she was dead to them. That broke something. Damien came over immediately when she called. He held her on the couch while she cried. Didn't try to fix it, just let her feel it. When she finally stopped, he made her tea and ordered takeout and put on an old movie. "Their loss," he said quietly. "This baby's going to be loved, protected, free to be whoever they want to be. Your parents don't deserve to be part of that." Emma leaned against his shoulder. "I wanted them to change, to surprise me, to choose me for once. I know. But you have a new family now, one you're building, one that chooses you every single day." She fell asleep against him that night, woke up covered with a blanket. Damien had stayed all night in an uncomfortable chair just to be there. That meant more than any grand gesture. Jess threw her a baby shower at the apartment. She'd felt terrible about giving Emma's information to Damien's lawyer, had apologized 100 times. Emma forgave her. Sometimes things worked out for reasons you couldn't see at the time. Damien's friends showed up, powerful men and women Emma had only seen in magazines. They brought expensive gifts and treated her like she belonged, like she was one of them. The CEO of a tech company gave her his card, said to call if she ever wanted funding for her youth center dream. A fashion designer offered to design her entire maternity wardrobe. A famous actress asked for her number so they could get coffee. It was surreal and overwhelming and wonderful. Emma had spent her whole life invisible. Now she was surrounded by people who saw her. Labor came 2 weeks early. Emma woke up at 3 in the morning with contractions. She called Damien, who arrived in 20 minutes. He'd clearly been awake, waiting for this moment. He drove her to the hospital, held her hand while they checked her in, never left her side. 18 hours of agony that Emma wouldn't wish on her worst enemy. Her body split in half, pain unlike anything she'd imagined. Damien breathed with her, told her she was amazing, wiped sweat from her forehead. When the doctor said it was time to push, he moved behind her, supported her weight, whispered encouragement in her ear. Their son arrived screaming and perfect, all pink and wrinkled and alive. The doctor placed him on Emma's chest. She looked down at this tiny human, this miracle, and felt a love so fierce it hurt. "He's beautiful," Damien whispered. Tears streamed down his face. "He's so beautiful, Emma." Emma looked up at him, at the father of her child, at the man who'd shown up every single day for 6 months, who'd worked through his grief, who'd let her set the pace, who'd earned her trust. "What should we name him?" Damien looked at their son, at Emma, at the future they'd built from chaos and chance. "Noah," he said. "It means rest, peace, a new beginning. After the flood, everything starts over." Emma smiled through her own tears. "Noah Cross. I love it." "Noah Clark Cross," Damien corrected gently. "If you'll let me. I want him to have both our names, both our histories." Emma's heart swelled. She nodded. "Noah Clark Cross. Perfect." They spent that first night in the hospital room. Damien slept in the chair next to Emma's bed. Noah slept in his bassinet. Emma watched them both, her 2 boys, her unexpected family. She'd thought that drunken night was the worst mistake of her life. Turned out it was the best thing that ever happened. 8 months later, Emma graduated with her master's degree in social work. Damien held Noah in the audience and cheered louder than anyone when she walked across the stage. Her parents weren't there, but her chosen family was. Jess, Damien's friends, her professors who'd supported her through pregnancy and new motherhood. That night, Damien took her to dinner at the penthouse where they'd first met. The space looked different now. He'd redecorated, made it warmer, less like a museum, more like a home. Emma walked to the window and looked out at the city. So much had changed. I have something to ask you. Damien came up behind her. Noah was with his nanny for the evening. Just the two of them. We've been doing this parenting thing together for 8 months. We're good at it. We are, Emma agreed cautiously. Noah is happy. You're happy. I'm happier than I've been in years. You've got your degree now. You're starting your career. And I've done the work, the therapy, the grieving. He pulled out a small box. Emma's heart stopped. I'm not asking because of the baby anymore. I'm not asking because it's convenient. I'm asking because somewhere between that fire escape and now I fell completely in love with you. He opened the box. The ring was simple, elegant, perfect. A single diamond that caught the city lights. Emma Clark, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life showing you that our mistake was actually the best thing that ever happened to both of us? Emma looked at the man in front of her, the father of her child, the person who'd seen her at her worst and chose to stay anyway. The one who'd learned to heal and helped her be brave. She thought about that scared girl on the fire escape, about the version of herself who thought one drunken night had ruined everything. She'd been so wrong. Yes, the word came out steady and sure. Yes, I'll marry you, Damien Cross. He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her. Really kissed her for the first time since that night. It felt like coming home, like every piece finally clicking into place, like the beginning of something real and lasting. They were married 6 months later on the beach outside the Hamptons house. Emma's parents didn't attend. She'd invited them anyway, sent a beautiful invitation with photos of Noah. They'd returned it unopened. Emma had cried but moved on. Some people couldn't change. Jess was her maid of honor. Noah toddled down the aisle in a tiny tuxedo, dropping flower petals everywhere. Half of them ended up in his mouth. Guests laughed. Emma's heart swelled. Damien cried during his vows. Emma cried during hers. The life they built wasn't perfect. They fought sometimes. About money, about parenting styles, about whose turn it was to deal with diaper blowouts at 3 a.m. But they showed up for each other. They chose each other every single day. Emma opened her youth center 2 years later. A bright space in Brooklyn where isolated kids could come and just be themselves. Read any books, watch any documentaries, learn about the world without judgment. Damien funded it, showed up for ribbon cuttings and fundraisers, watched Emma work with teenagers, and fell even more in love. Noah grew up happy, surrounded by love, free to be exactly who he was. He asked about Lily sometimes, the sister he'd never met. Damien showed him photos, told him stories, taught him that love didn't end just because someone was gone, that you could honor the past while building the future. On the 5th anniversary of that night, Emma woke up in Damien's arms. Noah was 4 now, in preschool, learning to read. They just found out Emma was pregnant again, a girl this time. What are you thinking about? Damien's voice was rough with sleep. Emma smiled. That drunk night 5 years ago, when I thought I'd ruined my entire life. And I was right. I did ruin my life. She kissed him softly. I ruined my old life, the one where I was small and scared and invisible. And I built something so much better. Damien pulled her closer. His hand rested on her stomach where their daughter was growing. Best mistake we ever made. Emma laughed. The best. They lay there watching the sun rise through the window. 2 people who'd found each other in the darkness, who'd built a family from chaos, who'd learned that sometimes the worst nights lead to the best mornings. That drunk virgin girl who slept with the billionaire, she became a wife, a mother, a social worker who changed lives. She became brave. She became free. She became exactly who she was always meant to be. And it all started with one drunken decision on a fire escape. That's the end of Emma and Damien's story. From a terrifying one-night stand to a beautiful family built on trust and healing. Sometimes our biggest mistakes lead to our greatest blessings. If you love this emotional roller coaster, hit that like button and subscribe for more heart-wrenching stories with happy endings. What moment hit you hardest? Let me know in the comments below.